then you can do so via those replays. By supporting us, if you wish. I mean, we also give out replay packs to our Twitch subscribers as well, so you can do so via Twitch or via Patreon, however you please. Regardless, we're jumping into our grand finals, and spawning in the top right hand corner of Ghost River, we have our South Korean Protoss player, the Blue Protoss, representing Streamer Zone. It is NightMare. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the Canadian Protoss player, the Red Protoss, representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. Predictions? Well, now, if you're in the chat, you know what time it is. Get your gambler going, because predictions are now open. Place your bets on who you think will take the series. As a reminder, the last time these two faced off in the finals of STC, it was a 3-0 in favor of Trigger, but that was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks, it's a long time. It's a long time. Since then, NightMare has been practicing, he's been improving. You know, the grudge has been building in NightMare, and now he's here to get his revenge. Again, I will be very shocked and very surprised if this is a 3-0 in either direction. I expect a back and forth. I do not expect a one-sided series, but we'll see. The pressure is on our players. I also didn't expect a 3-0 last time either, but we'll see. Likewise, also important to take note that both NightMare and Trigger are in Korea. Trigger has been in Korea for the past couple of months. That is, I would say, a big reason as to why Trigger has been improving so much, is that he has been, you know, practicing in Korea this entire time. And that practice has been paying off. This is also why, if you've been tuning into the podcast, I've been discussing with Yaku, we've been talking about the improvement of Trigger, and we've been talking about the improvement of Estrella as well. And we're like, we need to host a show match between Estrella and Trigger. Like, Estrella, he is the #1 player in the Americas, but because Trigger's been doing so well recently, like, we would love to see a show match to kind of compare the two right now, because it's kind of hard to judge, just because they don't often play and don't often meet in tournaments. One day. One day we'll get the NA PvP show match. One day. For now, we're settling in. But now we do have NightMare scouting for a proxy on his own side of the map. Likewise, so was Trigger. Bearing in mind that Trigger did not probe scout, and neither did NightMare, so both players are playing in the dark. They're both playing blind. Just being as safe as possible. Scouting first. For those proxies. As both did open up double stalker. Trigger has the high ground, and NightMare once again being active, looking for any stray pylons. Checking the tuna, of course. The tuna. And checking the more standard proxy locations as well. Does poke in. Likewise, Trigger opening up with his tech of choice, going for a Twilight Council opener. Meanwhile, NightMare instead delayed his tech, going for a 3rd and 4th Stalker as well. So he built up a higher Stalker count. Trigger instead following it up with sentries. And NightMare, he will get the first volley off. Ooh, get some hull damage done on the first Stalker. Trigger in a bit of trouble. The Stalker gets low, shield battery under fire. And Trigger, he is up against the wall. NightMare going for the pylon. Trigger, he has to wait for extra reinforcements. Does warp in. Oof, pylon goes down. Nice pick off here out of NightMare. NightMare backs up. Does get out of here without losing a single unit. Gets a shield battery. Gets a pylon. And is also taking towards Blink. Now, as a reminder, because Trigger skipped out and didn't make extra Stalkers, that's why he has a much faster Twilight Council and much faster Blink. Blink is already on the way for Trigger. Blink only just now begins for NightMare. Despite that, it's only a small window. It's only a small advantage here that Trigger has when it comes to his Blink timing. Likewise, Trigger scouts across the map, confirms the gateways, confirms the tech. And he himself can now be active. Interesting, Trigger going to be the first to take a 3rd. Setting up for the 3rd expansion. Moves out. NightMare still has his higher Stalker count. Trigger has to be careful. NightMare, he wants to engage. Nice force fields, though. And NightMare gets caught out. One Stalker goes down. Sentries as well. And this will be a better trade for Trigger. And NightMare has to back off, bearing in mind the Blink is still not done for either player. It's about to finish for Trigger. Meanwhile, third base being taken. NightMare will confirm. Is aware that Trigger has a faster third. But he's going for the mineral line. Adepts a shade in. And they got one probe so far. Nice blinks out of Trigger. Nice positioning. At the same time, pushing out across the map. But Blink is finishing up for NightMare as well. Trigger pushing in. 5 probes go down across the map. And does Trigger have enough? Oh, it doesn't look like it. With the defensive advantage, with reinforcements, NightMare holds. NightMare does hold. Trigger pushing the issue, but unable to. And NightMare does take a probe lead. Trigger rotating around, does bypass the main army, going for the shield battery. Won't quite get it. Gets a volley off, does retreat. Trigger doesn't quite find the pylon. Just falling back. Getting for his third, getting saturated. I mean, again, Trigger did have the faster expansion. Is now taking a slight worker lead, getting to +1 into charge. Trigger going for a very gateway heavy composition. Meanwhile, NightMare instead, he delays his upgrades by going into Immortals. So NightMare, he will have a higher Immortal count. Trigger will have charge and +1. So both players going down kind of different routes. Going down different tech paths here. But now just calming things down, getting our third bases saturated. Trigger still vying for map control. Hoping to catch any stray units or hallucinations. Speaking of, does find a sentry. But loses his own as well. Trading a sentry for a sentry. Oh, bleeding out extra stalkers as well. Yeah, better pickups here for NightMare. Immortals are moving out, and where are those charge lots? Charge is finishing up in 5 seconds. Trigger needs a little bit more time. There we go. Charge is now done. +1, still a ways off. No shield battery at the third. Uh-oh. No shield battery, no overcharge. But Trigger does dive in. Going for the Immortals. Nice pickups here from NightMare. Pulls away. And the armies, they bounce off each other. Again, if it wasn't for charge, NightMare could have ended the game then and there. But Trigger holds. Trigger does hold on. Catches out a couple of Stalkers. Not bad. 2 Stalkers go down. Getting a 4th base. And you can see Trigger, he's staying on a low gas count. No gases at the natural, no gases at the third. Very zealot heavy. Meanwhile, NightMare working towards Glaive Adepts. Interesting. Reinforcing with many Adepts here. Glaive's on the way. Remember, no Forge, no upgrades. There's going to be a window where Trigger has +2 against the 0-0 of NightMare. Which is going to be insane. Now, Adepts, they're kind of like a band-aid solution to the problem that is the Zealots. Adepts, they can do okay against Zealots. Not amazing. But Glaive's not done. And Trigger, he's going for the kill. Attempts to overwhelm, dives on top of the army. Overcharge gets popped, but down goes the shield battery. And Trigger, he does focus it down. He gets 1, pulls back, and does Trigger have enough? The Immortals are doing a lot of the backline, and Trigger, he's running out of steam. Again, this was meant to kill. And the Adepts, they did their job. Glaives finished up, and the Adepts, they were able to hold their own. And Trigger doesn't have enough. A bit of a misclick there at a NightMare. But Trigger retreats, and he has to get the hell out of here. Nice juggling at a NightMare. He wants the Immortals. He wants them. Up! And he's got to get them as well. He gets 1. 1 Immortal goes down. Again, +2 is still not done for Trigger. Will snipe the Warp Prism. Denies the Warp in, not bad. But Trigger, he's up against the wall. Shield batteries are not ready yet. He needs more time. Yeah, Zell's trying to dive in. Once again, going on top of the Immortal. Immortal gets targeted down. Not bad. But Trigger is being overwhelmed. There's just too many Stalkers, too many Glaive Adepts as well. And NightMare, it looks like he has done it. Shades past the army, goes to the mineral lines. Probes are going down as well. Trigger trying to hold on with his own defensive Adepts. Let's go. Vanilla Adepts. Aye, aye, aye. They're doing what they can. The boys are being pulled into Glaive Adepts as well. 16 probes go down. And NightMare, he's not done. He's rallied towards the fourth base. GG gets called, and NightMare will take game number 1. Whew. GG. GG, well played. A very interesting dynamic, something you don't see too often. But again, Trigger, he was relying so heavily on just mass zealot, on just overwhelming his opponent. And once NightMare realized what was going on, how do you respond to that? Well, he wasn't ready for Archons. He wasn't ready for Disruptors or Colossus. He had no splash damage. What's the next best thing? Glaive Adepts. Glaive Adepts back. Glaives did finish in the middle of the fight at the third base. And the Adepts, they just annihilated those Zealots. They were able to shut them down. GG. GG, well played. NightMare takes the lead. Whew. GG, well played. And now we're getting ready for game number 2. Exclamation mark topic. Oh, we have no topic command. No. Not like this. We're getting ready for that second game. And I don't really think game 1 really told us too much. A big reason as well as to why Trigger was playing that style and being so committed and so aggressive with Mass Zealot is also because how small the map is. Again, we were loading into Ghost River as game 1, and it's a very small map, very short rush distance by ground. It does favor aggression. That's why Trigger was, being quite all in with that style. On a larger map, I don't expect Trigger to quite play like that. I feel like we expect something different here. And speaking of larger maps, we're loading into Site Delta. One of the larger maps in the map pool. Very wide open. And even prone to Phoenix Wars. And we'll get into that. As spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Site Delta, we have the South Korean Protoss player, the Blue Protoss representing Streamer Zone, leading the series 1-0. It is NightMare. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss player, the Red Protoss representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. Here we go. We have our PvP. We have our game 2. And an interesting choice here to Trigger. Now, this is something that Estrella does. So, I kind of want to say that this is the influence of Max Angel. Trigger going for the gateway on the high ground. Meanwhile, NightMare opening up gateway on the low ground. Now, the reason why what NightMare is doing is more standard and is legal, definitely legal here in PvP on Site Delta, is the ramp. There's a ramp coming into the natural. This is unique to Site Delta, Post Youth, and Amphion. Those 3 maps have ramps into the natural base, which is why gate expands are a lot more commonplace. Trigger opening up with a gateway on the high ground, opening up 2 gate even. This means that Trigger has the potential for a 1 base all-in. My eyes are on this probe. Yep, and the pylon is going to be placed, and this is a prime location for a proxy robo. Cybercore gets placed, and does Trigger commit to the all-in? Now, it is a bold move. The reason why you see these kind of setups here, and NightMare, he goes for the Nexus before Cyber. He's asking to be all-in. He's crazy. Oh my, even Max Pax doesn't do this. Ay, ay, ay. He's crazy. But NightMare going Nexus before Cybercore. Very greedy build here by NightMare. Very greedy. I'm sure he is not really expecting an all-in, but there we go. He's scouting for it, making sure there is no proxy pylon. Cybercore is done and shows the robo. Probe is getting ready, waiting for the gas. Robo has been placed. No, he re-rallies! NightMare! He was scouting, and he will, but it's going to be a later scout for NightMare. He's going the long way around instead. Trigger confirms the Nexus is aware, and NightMare will get eyes on the robo. Okay, so at least NightMare knows. At least he's aware of the all-in. It's going to be a 1 base all-in out of Trigger. And NightMare, he should be responding with his own tech, with his own robo or Stargate. Meanwhile, the first Zealot has arrived, going for the pylon. Pylon taking a lot of hits. Trigger, he won't be able to save it. Pylon goes down. Uh-oh. Meanwhile, Trigger going for the pylon in the main base of NightMare. Cheeky move. He can warp it into the main. Adepts have arrived. Pylon's going to be replaced, but the Zealot has arrived, and he could try to force another cancel. Won't quite be able to. But this is still very difficult for Trigger. He's trying to hold on to that Robo, trying to save it, but another Stalker has arrived, and there's no shot here. Trigger is trying to reinforce. Trying. Pylon does complete in the main. Trigger coming in from behind. There we go. He will save the Robo. Did cost him a lot of pylons. There we go. Has to cancel. Does save it. Just barely. Meanwhile, NightMare, he scouts the pylon in the main. He is aware. Adepts take him into the shade. And Trigger warping the Adepts into the main base of NightMare. Oh, NightMare, he's locked out. Oh. He has to recall. He has to recall into the main. Oh my god. Not like this. Trigger had potential. And will shade into the natural, gets one probe. It's okay. Not ideal. One probe goes down. First Immortal has arrived. Oh, the Force Wheels, they lock down the Immortal. Massive pick off. Trigger, he can't lose this. He cannot afford to lose it. The first Immortal goes down. Massive pick off. And NightMare's holding. NightMare, he's holding on. He shuts down the Adepts. He delayed the Robo, delayed the Immortal. Killed the Immortal as well. And things are looking bleak here for Trigger. He gets 6 probe kills, which is better, but NightMare still has a worker lead. Prism has arrived. But again, the longer this goes on, the better it is for NightMare. And NightMare, he has a massive amount of Stalkers. He zones Trigger away. Trigger has nothing to work with, nothing left. And again, it was bold to go for the one-base all-in on site Delta of all maps. But last NightMare, he scouted, he shut it down, he delayed, bought time. Caught the first Immortal. Second Immortal has arrived. Trigger, he will get the gateway. True. The Cybercore as well. I mean, the entire wall. I mean, not bad. Catches a Stalker. Cybercore is getting low. You can see the Trigger, he's trying to DPS down the wall at the same time. He wants to knock it all down at the same time. As everything's getting low, there we go. The first gateway does fall. Second gateway as well. Catches the sentries. A very meticulous control here by Trigger. Gets both gates. And the Cybercore is the next target. There we go, he has to engage. That's juggling here at a NightMare. Overcharges run out of energy. Immortals are breaking through, and Trigger, he can still pull this off. Gets a Cybercore. And no more Stalkers. Only 2 gateways left for NightMare. The Immortals are breaking through, and Trigger, he's salvaging the situation. He's breaking through. Trigger, the boys are being pulled. The boys are being pulled, and Trigger, he's gaining ground. Another Immortal has arrived. NightMare trying to hold on. Takes out the sentries. Oh, Trigger, he's bleeding out a little bit too much. Down to 3 Immortals. And 3 Stalkers. Ooh, the Immortal gets low. He does save it. And Trigger, has he done it? It's still so close. Yeah, warping into the face of his opponent. 1 Immortal goes down. Overcharge gets popped. There's 1 Immortal left. And Trigger, he takes down the shield battery. He denies the overcharge. Has the Immortal lead. Oh god, it's still close. 2 versus 2. Third Immortal's on the way. I mean, NightMare, he might lose the natural, but remember, it's a one-base all-in. So losing the natural is not the end of the world for NightMare. He's trying to save it. Third Immortal has arrived for Trigger. Nice force field, but alas, is saved. And Trigger back at home, does he expand? For now he's focusing on his push. Does make his way up the ramp. Nice juggling here at a Trigger. Immortal goes down, 2 Immortals left. And again, Trigger, it looks like he just barely has too much. Takes out another Immortal. Yeah, a bit of miscontrol at a NightMare. Down to 1 Immortal. Down to 0. GG gets called. Trigger. He outcontrols NightMare. He brings it back, and we have a tied up series. GG. Oh my god. Crazy. GG, well played. It was a very rough start for Trigger. It was very rough. Remember, Trigger, he lost his pylons. His robot was depowered as well. He was losing adepts. He got scouted. He lost the first Immortal. Everything was just going south for Trigger. But he was able to bring it back. He was able to bring it back. Very slow, very meticulous control at the natural, slowly picking away at the gateways, picking away at the cyber core, brought it all down. Likewise, the Prism and the Immortal production was a little bit more delayed for NightMare as well. And when it came down to the overall fights, Trigger did outcontrol NightMare. Did outcontrol him, was able to preserve his Immortals, was able to have better War Prism micro, better juggling, and did outpace him in the end. GG. GG, well played. Whew. Very intense game there by Trigger, by both players. And with that, we're tied up. We're going to game 3. Here we go. Why do you say Side Delta of all maps to 1 base all in? Because the defender's advantage is greater on Side Delta compared to maps like Oceanborn or Alcyone. What I'm referring to specifically is the ramp at the natural. So the ramp gives you high ground. It also creates a choke point as well. It also allows for what we just saw, the first Immortal getting caught. Force fielding the ramp and catching the first Immortal of Trigger isn't possible on some of these other maps, like this map, like Alcyone. So the defender's advantage is actually quite large, or it is better than some of these other maps on Side Delta, which is why it's harder to pull off a 1 base all in, which we kind of saw come into play in that last game. But here we go, spawning in the bottom left hand corner of Alcyone. We have the blue Protoss player from South Korea being forced into a tied up series. We'll see if we can bring it back. Representing Streamer Zone, it is NightMare. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss player, the red Protoss representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. Here we go. We're going to be settling into Alcyone. We'll see what direction our players do take us in this time. Now, as opposed to the previous map, neither player is tempted to go for a faster expansion. We should be seeing 2 gate openers from both players, and from here getting into a more standard PvP. Now, the real question becomes, what will our first 2 units be? Will we open up double Adept, double Stalker, double Sentry? We'll see what initial units our players go for. Depending on the first 2 units, that will kind of indicate what kind of game our players want to play out, whether they want to be more aggressive or more defensive. Hello, Trigger. As Trigger, he does actually deviate over towards the right-hand side, and he's going for the proxy pylon. Now, this is a prime location for a proxy robo. Trigger might just go for another 1 base all in. What are the odds that he does that 2 games in a row? Now, as opposed to the previous map, as we mentioned, the natural base is more exposed. But the downside here is that, remember, because we're loading into Alcyone, NightMare is not going for a greedy opener. He's going 2 gate, so he will have more units to defend, and Trigger is not going proxy robo, he's going proxy Stargate. Okay, this makes more sense. So this is not a 1 base all in, but this is an aggressive start. Now, the way this works here is that this should be proxy Oracle, and the Oracles, they can go into the mineral line, they can wreak havoc, they can cripple the economy, and then Trigger can just expand. He can just expand, he can just macro from here, and take an economic lead. Meanwhile, NightMare across the map, he did scout the lack of pylon, so NightMare is aware that something is wrong. You can see he's scouting. NightMare, he's scouting, he's checking towards the left-hand side, sorry, towards the right-hand side. NightMare, he fans out his stalkers as well. He's looking for the proxy. He knows that there's a proxy somewhere. Doesn't quite know where, though. And there we go, he will confirm. Nicely done by NightMare. He does come across the Stargate, is aware of the proxy Oracle. So NightMare is aware. Back at home, oh my god, NightMare responded, before he scouted, he responded with a robo, now a gateway. 1 base all in. NightMare, he set up for his own 1 base all in. No proxy, but alas, Mass Stalker with a robo into a War Prism as well. Trigger doesn't know. Trigger has expanded. And Trigger, he's about to find out. As I say that Stalkers are in position to deny the scouts. Oracle does bypass the army, heads into the main, and now Trigger, he will find the Robo and the Gateway. Yeah, he gets a revelation. Trigger knows. And back at home, we need shield batteries. There we go. We have 1 shield battery so far. That's a good start. We're going to need more than that. Trigger, he throws down the defensive Robo for immortal production. Trigger, he confirms the lack of expansion. There is no Nexus. And NightMare's moving out. NightMare is moving out. He will depower the Stargate. Second shield battery is on the way for Trigger, so he has 2 shield batteries on the low ground. He's soon to have an overcharge as well. Honestly, he's looking quite heavy. He's looking quite well fortified here at the natural. And NightMare is going for a much later expansion. Okay, so Trigger, he's getting ready for the all-in. NightMare, he's deviating away from it. He doesn't really feel too confident in the all-in. And now, for NightMare, it's about trying to force an overreaction and trying to contain Trigger. I mean, there's even a shield battery in the main. Oh my god. Trigger forced to pull the boys. 3 probes go down. 4 probes go down. Not bad. NightMare getting up to 5 probes. Potentially 6. Up! Up! Oh my god. Gets 6 probe kills. And again, he's just running rings around Trigger. Trigger can't keep up. 9 probes! Oh my god! That's insane! 9 probe kills, and NightMare, he does take some damage on the Prism. Has to be careful. Sentry goes down. Immortal has arrived. Shield battery is done, and oh god. Trigger, he will defend, but he does lose 10 probes in the process. So even though Trigger, he had the faster expansion, NightMare has the probe lead. NightMare is up in workers. He has done enough damage. Again, Trigger, he was getting ready for a frontal assault here at the natural, and it never came. Did never come. NightMare getting ahead, jumping back into the natural. Going for the probes. Again, Trigger having a very hard time keeping up. The SimCity working against Trigger here. Oh, he wants a sentry. He gets it. Sentry goes down. And has NightMare lost anything? I mean, he's been losing probes, but yeah, only 3 probes. NightMare, he gets 11 probes. He gets a pylon. He gets 2 sentries as well. For nothing. He doesn't lose a single Stalker across the map. Very impressive control here by NightMare. Very impressive positional play as well. Again, Trigger, he kind of misread the situation. What I will say, though, is that Trigger has been building up an immortal count. He's been building up immortals. He will soon be able to break out. NightMare is not yet done. He wants more. Comes back in. He can out-control the Stalkers. Oh, but has NightMare overextended? The Prism! Prism barely does not go down. Oh my god. How? The Prism gets away. NightMare escapes. Gets the hell out of there. Does get out of the main. Getting ready for a third. Trigger, he will delay at least. He delays the 3rd expansion. But it's just been a very awkward game state. Trigger does at least catch the Observer. NightMare taking a 3rd. And again, it was just a really good way for NightMare to kind of take advantage of what Trigger had seen. Remember, Trigger early on, I mean, I even said it myself, it was a 1-base all-in. Trigger, he had seen enough to confirm a 1-base all-in, which is why NightMare didn't commit. He only warped in 4 Stalkers, he just expanded and probed from there, and now he's getting ready for his move out. Now, NightMare, he's up in army supply. His better economy throughout most of this game is now being revealed. Now it turns into a greater production, a greater army. There are 3 Immortals, but the force fields are brutal! The Immortals get locked down. Overcharge gets popped. But it won't save them. Both Immortals fall. And NightMare is snowballing out of control. He's just picking Trigger apart. I was thinking of the mountain earlier. I was thinking of Creator. As NightMare is pushing through, the War Prism still alive, still able to reinforce. NightMare is knocking down that front door. And there's barely anything left to defend here. Immortal goes down. Trigger microing his heart out, but alas, it's a numbers game at this point. GG gets called, and NightMare, he does bounce back. Takes the lead in the series at 2-1. GG. Whew. GG, well played. NightMare takes a 2-1 lead. As a reminder, this is a best of 5. NightMare needs one more. One more game to be this week's champion to get his revenge, Trigger has to fight back here and now to force the ace match. But that was a very chaotic game, and there was a lot of mind games going on. Again, winding it back a little bit, NightMare, he was set up for a one base all in. Trigger had scouted, which is why Trigger, he was responding with all those shield batteries. He had 2 shield batteries at the natural, a shield battery in the main. He was getting into immortal production as well. Instead, NightMare, he only warped in 4 stalkers, only 4 stalkers in the warp prism. Behind it, he was expanding, he was probing, he had invested the bare minimum, but he was able to outposition and just outposition Trigger there in the defense. Just dropping all over the main, all over the natural, just pulling him apart, getting so much value out of only 4 stalkers. And in the end, NightMare just snowballed from there. And now we're getting ready for game 4. Here we go. A very intense couple of games though, and I'm curious what the map is going to be here for that next game. On top of that, winding it back a little bit further, if you remember, NightMare, he also scouted the proxy, he scouted the Stargate. If you remember, that's why I'm pretty sure NightMare had opened up Robo as well. I think he was expecting a Robo out of his opponent. Here we go. Here we go. So we're in a really awkward position, actually. So never mind. I mean, that was a wild game that just occurred, and NightMare does have a 2-1 lead, but looks like both of our players have agreed to a regame here. Now, there's a reason for this. So apparently, they were never meant to play on Alcyone. Apparently, NightMare had made the lobby, they played it out, but they weren't meant to play on Alcyone. It was vetoed by Trigger, and looks like they both just realized, and NightMare has agreed to regame game 3. So never mind. So I did say that I mean, the game was already played out, so I mean, we can enforce that NightMare has a lead, but NightMare has agreed otherwise. He's like, no, it's okay, like we weren't meant to play on Alcyone, so my apologies. And yeah, they're going to be remaking instead. So there you go. I mean, shout out to NightMare. NightMare, he could have just taken the game. He could have taken the score lead, but he has agreed to regame instead. So a little bit awkward. I should probably just ask the players what the vetoes are so we don't make that mistake again. I should be like, guys, can you just tell me the map order so we make sure that doesn't happen? But okay, so never mind. We're tied up 1-1. Kind of weird, kind of odd, but I mean, NightMare agreed, and here we go. We're getting into game 3 now. Once again, as spawning in the top right-hand corner of Crimson Court, we have our South Korean Protoss player for Streamer Zone. It is NightMare. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss player, the Red Protoss for Basilisk. It is Trigger. Yeah, I see in the chat. Yeah, it is actually really good sportsmanship because, again, like, because the game was played and because no one realized the mistake was made, like, as like a tournament organizer or as an admin, like, I'm totally fine with that score being accepted. But NightMare, he's like, no, it's fine. Like, it was his mistake, and then they just rushed into the game, and it's all good. So game 3 is going to be remade instead, and we're loading into Crimson Court. Okay. Okay, let's just wind back the clock a little bit here. Oh my god. As NightMare, being as annoying as possible, does delay the gateway for a moment. It is going to be a 2-gate opener out of NightMare, a 2-gate opener out of Trigger. But now Trigger's SimCity is that much more awkward. So a very awkward start for Trigger here. Potentially, we could be seeing a NightMare take advantage of this. We'll see. If he does open up double Adept. I believe a Pylon will still wall this off, I believe, or a shield battery. But again, the SimCity is just a little bit more, a little bit less refined, I should say. As we are settling in. Here we go. The cyber cores are done, and what do we open up? Yep, double adept. It makes sense. It's going to be double adept opener out of NightMare. He's going to try to shade across the map. He's going to try to get into the main base and attempt to cripple the economy of Trigger. Meanwhile, Trigger opens up Stalker Sentry, a much more defensive opener. It's going to be Stalker Sentry. With this, he will have access to earlier hallucinations to scout his opponent to get a read on what NightMare is up to. Ooh, as NightMare, calm down. Mate, NightMare, he's on that high after winning that last game. He delays the expansion, barely gets the pylon block as well. Adepts are moving out. And there we go. Trigger, he will now expand. Is a delayed expansion, but is settling in. Probe is in position as well to wall off. Adepts have arrived. And it's going to be on Trigger to keep up with the Adept harass. Meanwhile, across the map, NightMare going to be going for a bit of a later expansion by a couple of seconds. Adept's going to be shading in. And Trigger does wall off. Does wall off in time. Hallucination moves out. And Trigger is going to attempt to try to catch these Adepts. Getting a good amount of damage. Adept shading in. Trigger once again walls off. Ooh, Probe goes down. Probe does fall. The Adepts do manage to survive. I say that Trigger, he's in position to catch the Adepts. Very nice positioning. The Trigger with the surround gets one and should get both. There we go. Both Adepts do fall. Nice cleanup here by Trigger. NightMare pulling back home. And we're now embracing our tech. It is going to be a Twilight Council out of NightMare. Likewise, Twilight Council out of Trigger as well. Both players working towards Blink Stalkers. It was a bonus show. Yeah, it's fine. It was just a bonus map. Don't worry about it. We just had a little break in the series. It's fine. As Trigger dives into the main with the hallucination, again we did mention with the sentry opener. Does confirm blink. And now we can take a moment here to, speak about the maps themselves. Crimson Court is a little bit more unorthodox. Of course, there are entire sections of the map that are just cut off by mineral walls, by rocks as well. As a result, they're also a lot more defendable and difficult to really engage into. So if we get up to 3-4 bases, we can see the late game. We can get into a later game, into a 4 or 5 base setup. Stalker Disruptor into Sky Toss. We'll see if we can get there though, as Trigger is taking the forward expansion. Bold move. Now this center base does have the high yield gas geyser, does yield a lot of gas here as well. In PvP can be very impactful. NightMare does spot, does confirm, will attempt to delay. But Trigger is in position to protect that third. NightMare taking a much more standard third base location instead. And we'll see if NightMare can punish the third base of Trigger. Shield batteries are on the way. On top of that, you can also actually lay siege upon this base from the low ground. You can go within range of the gas geyser from the low ground as well. This NightMare is being active. So far, Trigger's keeping up. Robo's on the way. I'm curious if Trigger rushes into this gas geyser. I'm curious if he's going to rush into disruptors. Curious what the gas is going to be spent on, And how he does take up. Trigger pushing in between the bases, but the concave is in favor of NightMare. He's got 2 shield batteries, 2 overcharges. An overcharge, I should say. NightMare's keeping up. Both players taking into their forges, into +1. And I'm curious if Trigger goes into charge, or if he does skip charge and go into disruptors. This one is on the way. Robo's now finishing up. Do we go for the Bay? To see NightMare trying to skirt around the edge, does avoid the main army, and now we can blink into the main. 4 probes that can wreak havoc in the mineral line. We saw what NightMare can do with 4 probes, with 4 stalkers in that last game. Does threaten, forces a recall. Trigger's keeping up. Taking the gas geyser. For now, just going Mass Blink Stalker. Trigger does have the Stalker lead. We'll see NightMare is taking up into Zealots. Skipping out on gases. And I imagine Trigger is going to commit to just Mass Stalker. And we'll see if Trigger can break NightMare before Zealots come into play. So there we go. NightMare pushing into a concave. Ay, ay, ay. Trigger takes the fight. Doesn't quite chase yet. Upgrades are still a couple of seconds off. Trigger doesn't want to hit an anti-timing. He's waiting for +1. Looking at the Stalker count, Trigger still has the slight Stalker lead. Ooh, as once again, NightMare taking a bad fight. Oh my god. Runs into the army, bleeding out 3 Stalkers. Trigger rotating around. Gets eyes on the would-be center expansion. +1 is soon going to kick in for NightMare. Yeah, 10 seconds away. +1 is almost done. Charge is finishing up as well. And I feel like the window for Trigger is closing a little bit here. As the Zealot count gets higher, I'm a little bit less hopeful for Mass Stalker. Here we go. Trigger's pushing in. Catches out some Stalkers. Nice force fields. Creating a choke point. Yeah, and you can see the majority of the army of NightMare just cannot engage. Trigger taking the better fight. But is forced back. Gets the Observer. Observers go down. No more force fields. NightMare, he is holding. But that's so many Stalkers with Trigger. He blinks in. Oh my god. Again, looking at the unit tab, it's 34 Stalkers to 20. And Trigger looks like he has too much. It looks like he is breaking through. The power of the gas guys, of the high yield gas. Trigger, he overwhelms. And he will clean up this army. He takes out every single Stalker. The Zealots are coming in, but it's too little too late. Nice kiting out of Trigger. Shuts down the Zealots. And there's barely any Stalkers left here for NightMare. And Trigger, he just keeps reinforcing with Mass Stalker. NightMare cannot keep up. Is desperately trying to. More shield batteries are coming into play. 1 Stalker left there. Yeah, there's nothing. There's just nothing here. 1 Stalker, a handful of Zealots. Trigger, he overwhelms. GG gets called, and Trigger will take a 2-1 lead in the best of 5. GG. GG, well played. Again, Trigger, he was able to take his extra gases, of course, taking advantage of the high yield gas geyser as well, going Mass Stalker, and alas, NightMare was unable to punish the center base. On top of that, in the lead up to the main fight, NightMare, he was caught out in the center of the map. He was just bleeding out too many Stalkers too soon, too quickly, and despite having the high ground, he was eventually overwhelmed by the pure Stalker of Trigger, again, which he would afford because of the high yield gas geyser. GG. GG, well played. Trigger does take a lead, and now we're getting into game number 4. And we're going to be loading into Oceanborn. This time, the correct map. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. Here we go. Getting into Oceanborn. The pressure is on. I would love to see an ace match. We've had a back and forth already. I would love to see a game 5, but the pressure is now on NightMare. Now, unlike the previous map, here on Oceanborn, I mean, there aren't any high-yield gas geysers or, you know, high-yield bases in general to take advantage of. So, once again, I'm sure Trigger will take a different approach, a different build from the previous game. As we are loading in and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Oceanborn, we have the blue Protoss player from South Korea representing Streamer Zone. Down in this series, we'll see if he can bounce back and force the ace match. It is NightMare. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss player, the red Protoss representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. The finals of Sparkling Tuna Cup 69 should be, of course, a best of 69. We should have played on Biosphere. True. Oh my god. That's a blast from the past. Biosphere. That's the 69 map, right? Hold on. Not like this. I was looking for the Wikipedia page, but I don't think it ever hit the ladder. We'll be here all night long. Stuck in the 69. Not like this. As it is going to be a 2-gate opener, 2-gate opener out of Trigger, 2-gate opener out of NightMare. This time our SimCity is looking a little cleaner here, of course, thankfully. We are settling in. And we'll see how our players do divert and how they open up. As NightMare is being as annoying as possible. This time the second pylon gets placed in the main for Trigger. Same can be said for NightMare, so no proxy. No proxy, no cheese! No aggression quite like that. Meanwhile, we're just waiting for the Cybercores to finish up. Cybercores are soon to finish, and from here we can go double Adept, double Stalker, Stalker Sentry. Where are we headed? Double Stalker out of NightMare, double Stalker out of Trigger as well. Okay, let's go. Both players going to be vying for map control. We'll be pushing out. We have seen NightMare on smaller maps embrace a 3rd and 4th Stalker as well, delaying the expansion for just a stronger army early on to snowball. We'll see if NightMare does something similar. For now, Trigger trying to get a read on the first 2 units. So is NightMare. Yeah, the Stalkers are revealed. NightMare is aware. Meanwhile, I believe Trigger he evacuated a little bit earlier, so Trigger is a little bit in the dark as to what's going on. Meanwhile, we spoke about the 3rd and 4th Stalker. Here they come. So again, NightMare, he delays the expansion in favor of additional Stalkers. Meanwhile, Trigger goes double Stalker into double Sentry, which is a lot cheaper to afford a faster expansion. So Trigger will have a slightly better economy here. Meanwhile, NightMare will have more Stalkers to work with. And we'll see what he does with this. He should be moving out. Yeah, he is moving out. Hoping to catch a stray unit, a stray Stalker. Trigger has the high ground, but... Oh, does he force field? Does force field, does buy time. Whew. Trigger is holding on. He does fall back. Shield battery is not yet done. And NightMare, ideally, he wants to pick off those sentries. Does push in. Reinforcements have arrived. Yeah, Trigger can hold his own, trading 1 for 1. NightMare going for the sentry, gets 1. Not bad. 1 sentry goes down. And he even does force the Guardian Shield as well. As NightMare does get away. Now, this also means that because of the Snipe Sentry and because of the Guardian Shield, Trigger has no hallucination, so Trigger, he's in the dark as to what's going on. NightMare pulls back, probing up, and is getting into Blink. Both players are. Blink is on the way for NightMare, Blink also on the way for Trigger. You can see that Trigger is forced to warp in his main. Again, Trigger, for all he knows, it could be a Stargate. Could be a Stargate opener, could be Oracle instead. So Trigger, he has to try to cover his bases and try to defend everything. Hallucination comes in, confirms the Blink, confirms the gateways. And now Trigger is more aware of what's going on. Again, Trigger, he was forced to warp in extra Stalkers. Back at home, NightMare setting up for a 3rd. And Trigger, he throws down 2 more gates. Oh my god! This is borderline 2-base all in. And bearing in mind, he throws down the gateways after the hallucination runs out. So NightMare, he saw the initial 2 gate. He didn't see the extra 2, the 3rd and 4th. He's moving out to deny the 3rd that doesn't exist. NightMare trying to get a feel of what's happening. Bearing in mind, he did expand. War Prism's on the way. Blink is almost done. And Trigger, he's soon going to be pushing. 3rd base has been placed. But again, this is a delayed third in favor of all these gateways. And Trigger should be the aggressor. Should be with extra warp-ins. Speaking of, Trigger is warping in, he's moving out with the prism. As he moves out, NightMare moves in, they miss each other. Uh-oh. The armies, they do pass by. NightMare going for the third, so is Trigger. And we could just go full base trade. Yeah, we have to commit. Third base are going to be going down. NightMare going into the natural, Trigger has to do the same. Actually, going straight for the production. Yeah, 2 gateways depowered. He's going for the other pylons as well. Likewise, Trigger going for the pylons, depowers the gateways. Let's go. We're here. We're in the base trade. Oh my god. Force fields are in. The probes. The probes are trapped. Every single worker is going to be going down. Massive pickups. The economy is crippled. And NightMare getting even more. Meanwhile, across the map, everything's still depowered as well. Do we force field? We don't even need to. Yeah, we save the energy. The probes are caught out. Everything is on fire. Trigger does escape with some workers. Trigger has enough for a Nexus. Meanwhile, NightMare, I believe no probes on the map. Trigger, he already has a Nexus on the way. Already has an expansion. He's recalling. He's crazy. Does recall back home. Trigger backs off. Does get the hell out of there. Gonna try to reinforce gateways. They were repowered. Look at the unit tab. Trigger, he has the Stalker lead just barely by 2. Slightly ahead in Stalkers. We'll still come down to the control. Shield batteries are done. Bear that in mind as well. Trigger going for the Nexus. Drags the army out of position. But NightMare has the concave. Yeah, NightMare now with a higher Stalker army is going to be able to overwhelm Trigger. I don't know if he can really take this fight. Tries to reinforce. Has the concave. Yeah, a bit of an awkward fight here for NightMare, but he's still breaking through. Yeah, NightMare, he will clean this up. Takes out the Stalkers, takes out the Prism as well. He blinks in. GG gets called, and NightMare ties up the series. We are going to the ace match. GG. GG, well played. Trigger, he was getting ready for a base trade. He even had a ninja base, the ninja base that never came into play. Bearing in mind that the reason why Trigger was kind of forced to fight there is because Trigger lost his third, NightMare didn't. Remember, NightMare, he was still on 3 bases, he was still on 3 Nexus, he had the better economy, he could stabilize from there. Trigger was more all in, and in the end, NightMare was able to hold, able to survive, able to defend. Now we find ourselves in Game 5. Let's go. We're going all the way to the ace match. And we'll see where this takes us. Oh boy. Getting ready for the final game of the series. And we're loading into oh my god. We're loading into Dynasty. I was gonna say, how did Dynasty not get vetoed? But I mean, Alcyone got vetoed instead, so... Okay. One of the most vetoed maps in the map pool was left open, and that's where the ace match is going to be taking place. A very unorthodox map, has a lot of potential for some wild builds, some more aggression. We'll see how the story ends. So we're getting into Game 5. It all ends here on Dynasty, and spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have the South Green Protoss player for Streamer Zone. It is NightMare. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss, the red Protoss representing Basilisk. It is Trigger. Here we go. And again, a big reason why this map is vetoed so often is the gold base. There is a pocket gold available here on Dynasty, and depending on the matchup, you can take this more freely, but specifically in PvP, it is very difficult to actually hold on to this gold early on. The reason for this is because range-based units can punish this mineral line, units like Adepts and Stalkers as well. So because of the initial gateway units available in PvP, the gold base is typically avoided until you can take it as a 4th base or maybe a 3rd base if you have map control. So both Trigger and NightMare should be able to expand and take the natural instead of the pocket gold. Probe Scout moves in. Trigger doing the same, just a bit of a later scout here from Trigger. is going to be a later scout. Moving out across the map. So far, everything's looking normal. Everything's looking as it should. Second pylon gets placed in the main base for NightMare as well. And both players will confirm. And from here, how do we open up? Again, we have seen these more aggressive starts from NightMare with a double, if not quadruple Stalker. But I doubt we'll be going for that this time. Here we go. Double Stalker opener out of NightMare. Once again, 2 games in a row. Trigger doing the same. And does NightMare once again commit to a 3rd and 4th Stalker? Does he commit? You want the probes? Ooh, in favor of NightMare. The probe gets a kill. Not something you see too often. Not bad. Probe goes down. Trigger going for the tech before the expansion. Interesting. Going for the Twilight Council first. Rushing into Blink. Or potentially DTs. That's also an option. True, true. I don't expect DTs, but it's going to be available. Hello, Probe. Yo. The Twilight Council's about to finish up, and we are setting up the proxy pylon here. Now, we could just throw down 2 more gateways, like 1 proxied, 1 at home, and just go for a 4-gate blink all in. NightMare is expanding. Moves out with the Stalkers. Yeah, blink is on the way. And show us the proxy gates. It's going to be a 1-base all in from Trigger. NightMare still being active. Stalker's almost getting caught out. But NightMare comes in for the surround. He outpositions Trigger. Trigger coming in with reinforcements. Gonna be able to hold his own. But his Stalkers are so low. His Stalkers are going down. 1 falls. Trigger, he has to get the hell out of here. His proxy's being set up, and Trigger, he's rushing into the gold. Bold move. He's crazy. He's going for the gold base on the other side. We'll see if Trigger can hold on to it. Bearing in mind, NightMare has map control. He's up 1 Stalker. He's hunting Trigger down, and Trigger, he can't afford to lose his army. He gets found. Trigger, he gets caught out, and Trigger should lose everything here. 4 Stalkers for 1. Very efficient trades. NightMare recalls back home. He's terrified there's a counterattack coming. His Natural's getting up and running, and he's going for his hallucination. He scouts the proxy gate. And will he scout the gold? He will. So NightMare, he's aware of what's going on. NightMare, he's ahead economically. And he does have a Stalker lead as well, and he knows it. And right now the pressure's on Trigger. Trigger, he has to buy time. He has to somehow buy time to allow the goal base to get up and running. Blink is done. Bear that in mind. Trigger, he has Blink over his opponent, so he has more micro potential. He can also backstab and get into the mineral line. Speaking of, he does move out. As Trigger moves out, so does NightMare. Trigger finds a pylon. NightMare does the same. Trigger pushing into the main base, but there's an Immortal here lying in wait. Trigger, what does he want? He wants a Sentry. Doesn't get it. Sentry survives. And Trigger, he does not lose a Stalker, not yet. Barely gets away. Does manage to escape. Meanwhile, his base is getting up and running, getting the high-yield gas geyser, the high-yield minerals as well. Trigger, he can stabilize, but NightMare has a terrifying army. It's less so about the Stalkers for NightMare, it's more about the Immortals. That's 2 Immortals. Dark Shrine is on the way as well. Let's go. Going into DTs. I believe Trigger does not have a Robo. Yeah, no Robo for Trigger. No detection. Uh-oh. And the game may just end with DTs. Meanwhile, the armies, they pass by each other. Trigger headed towards the Natural. Likewise, so is NightMare. Uh-oh. Going for another base trade. We have to commit. Now, the Dark Shrine is not done. Technically, Trigger, he could deny it. But now going for the probe kills. Adepts, they shade in towards the gold. Likewise, NightMare pushing into the main, going for the production. Trigger, he has to do the same. He does need to go into the main base, and he is. Dark Shrine, it's halfway done. Brutal force field. Probes, they get caught out once again. More probes falling here at the gold. The Robo is depowered. True, if there's no gateways, then the Dark Shrine doesn't matter. Oh, there's the recall! Boys are being pulled! And here come the Immortals. Yeah, NightMare is going to shut this down completely. The Stalkers have to get the hell out of here. Dark Shrine completes. Gateway is powered. And there is zero detection. Cybercore has to be rebuilt. DT comes in, and there's no answer. There is no answer to the Dark Templar. GG gets called, and NightMare will take the series 3-2 in a very chaotic back and forth, and will be this week's Sparkling Tuna Cup champion. GG. GG, well played. NightMare will take it in the end, went all the way to the ace match, a very chaotic game state as well. Again, Trigger, he tried to go for the initial all-in. Trigger tried to go for the initial all-in. Alas, NightMare, he was able to outposition Trigger early on, was able to take down the initial Stalkers, able to trap the initial units of Trigger and gain map control. Trigger, he responded by rushing into the gold, but alas, he wasn't quite able to fully make use of it, as NightMare, he was taking up cheekily towards DTs. Despite that, we had a wild base trade as well that was going on. Probes were going down left and right, but alas, there was never an answer. There was never an answer for the Dark Templar. Never any detection. GG, well played. NightMare will take it in the end, but a shout out to Trigger because, hey, bearing in mind, Trigger may have gone down in the finals, but Trigger, he 2-0'd Bjorn to make it to the finals. He 2-0'd Bjorn in the semifinals. Very impressive stuff here out of Trigger, and a very fun finals as well. There was a lot of chaos. We did have some macro, but we also had a lot of proxies, a lot of all-ins, a lot of just chaos and base trades. This was not the only base trade of the series, so if you missed out on the previous games, I recommend it. We even had we had 6 games in this best of 5, which is kind of weird, but it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. GG. GG, well played. Letting them know. Hold on. Just letting them know something very quickly. But here we go. With that, congratulations to NightMare. I was just letting our players know as well that if you're curious about the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, that was Monday mornings. No longer Monday morning. The Tenacious Turtle Tussle has been moved to Thursdays. So Thursday morning for that tournament. If players want to compete, or if you do want to tune in, for those that are curious, the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, it is a larger tournament in a sense. It is at a more friendly American time zone, less so European. Bear that in mind. But it does have a larger prize pool. It has a 150 USD prize pool. I say that has actually been a 300 USD prize pool, thanks to support on Matcherino by Stegosaurus, a very passionate fan of StarCraft. So thank you so much, Stegosaurus, for all the support. And again, the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, it used to be every single Monday morning, which would have been in like 8 hours. Sorry, like 9 hours time from now, 9-10 hours, we would be live once again with the Turtle Tussle. But we have decided to move it instead, just to kind of free up Mondays a little bit. So there are other tournaments underway, of course, like the Stego Monday Cup and the Wardy Cup and the Kalaris Cup and all that stuff. So we're moving over to the middle of the week instead. So just bear that in mind for the players and the viewers as well, for those that are curious. Otherwise, congratulations to NightMare, is our champion. He is our tuna for the week. Congratulations. And if you're curious, if you want some more Sparkling Tuna Cup action, we are live every single week. This is a weekly tournament every single Sunday night, at least Sunday night here. I know it's like Sunday afternoon, like in Europe, or Sunday morning in the Americas as well. But this is a open weekly tournament, and if you want to help support this tournament, you can do so via Patreon. Patreon is the place to be if you want to help support. Likewise, Matcherino as well, so you can help us grow the tournament and grow the prize pool. Currently, you can see how much we make on Patreon. It is just under NightMare's name, 256 USD a month. That is how much we do make a month. That is split between all the weeklies for STC, SDO, and MSO as well. So it does fund 3 of our tournaments. It's all broken down there on Patreon. And we do have our next stretch goal as well to grow the prize pool for STC and further on to help boost the prize pool and pay out top 4. That's the goal, at least. That is the goal. The Turtle Tussle is not funded via Patreon because it has its own individual sponsor, which is also why the Turtle Tussle has a larger prize pool, because the sponsor is very generous in that sense. That is why it's 150 USD for the Turtle Tussle instead. So a big shout out to Mark BT. Mark BT has been sponsoring the Turtle Tussle for the past month, for over a month at this point as well. So much love. Thank you. Thank you. Much love to Mark BT. Otherwise, thank you so much. Thanks so much for the support. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Our next cast on this channel is actually going to be in just under 24 hours. In around 22 hours time, we're going to be live with the Wardy TV Monday. The Wardy TV Monday Cup is going to be in 22 hours, so around this time we will be live covering that event. And if you're curious, the Wardy TV Monday is very similar to this one. It is a lot more Korean and European focused. Does have a larger prize pool, very similar to the Turtle Tussle actually. As a result, you should see these very same players, Trigger, alongside Beyond, alongside NightMare, and many other Koreans as well. So we'll be casting it here on the channel. So if you want to tune in, if you want to follow the Cranky Ducklings, we are live on almost a daily basis. We are on the off season, so nowadays there is a little bit less going on. There's no WTL, there's no Kung Fu Cup, there's no ESL Open Cups either, but we've all stepped in and we've all stepped up with our own Open Cups to fill the void that ESL Open Cups did leave. Ourselves, Wardy, Steadfast, Kalaris, Rotterdam, Dave Testa, Chicken Man, all the community members really did step up, and we've all been hosting our own tournaments to fill the void. Much love to all the other community members out there, to the community, to StarCraft. Much love, much love. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to tune in, if you want to follow us, I should say, follow us on all the social medias. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have a YouTube channel. We do stream both on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. And that also means that VODs are available on YouTube immediately. There are VODs available on YouTube if you're interested. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to go get some water. I'm going to go get some food. And I guess we'll be back tomorrow. We will be back tomorrow with the Wardy TV Monday. Otherwise, stick around. We're going to be giving another streamer a raid. Who's live? Who is live at the moment? That is the question. I see Ryung. Ryung is streaming. He's been streaming a lot, actually. Shout out to Ryung. He's been very active over the past month. Streaming so much. Who else is live? Rotterdam's playing Deadlock. He's been playing a lot of Deadlock. Bratok is live. Let's go. Mino VK. We'll find someone. We'll find someone. Otherwise, thanks so much. Thanks so much for watching. Quanta is live. Oh my god. Quanta. I mean, he didn't play in today's tournament. Este Quanta. But you know what? Let's give Quanta some love. Quanta, he's a Korean Terran player, so give him some love, give him some support. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. We do appreciate it. We'll see you guys tomorrow, and yeah, see you then. Until then, hasta luego. Ciao, papi, ciao. Hasta luego. Thanks for tuning in.